Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Safety and Solicitor General Mike Farnworth, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Rob Fleming, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries Lana Popham. We'll also have Janelle State, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure South Coast Region, Paula Cousins, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure Interior Region, and Don Roberts, RCMP Spokesperson. A reminder to media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to one question and one follow-up. With that, I'll turn it over to Minister Farnworth.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. I'm here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people and the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. I'm here today to provide an update on our ongoing response to the flooding and mudslide events. And looking ahead, we will continue to hold consistent availabilities to ensure we can share information in a timely manner. Before we get started, I want to quickly speak to the gas line explosion that happened this morning at Canadian Forces Base in Comox. Emergency responders are on the site and doing everything they can there. Fortis and safety officers from Technical Safety BC are working closely on this event. The Malahat Highway has opened sooner than expected. One lane on Highway 7 between Hope and Agassiz is now open for commercial vehicles. We anticipate the road will be open to single-lane alternating traffic later today. I'm pleased to say that around 1,000 people have now passed safely through Hope and are on their way home. 40,000 sandbags and 1,000 meters of tiger dams have made it through to Abbotsford to protect the pump station, and work there continues. That said, in some cases we are looking at extended period of time before roads open. Minister Fleming will be able to provide more details on the transportation situation in the province in a moment. The declaration of the provincial state of emergency will allow us to implement any provincial emergency measures needed. And in the coming days, we expect to leverage that authority. This will include implementing measures including those to limit non-essential travel and possible orders to prevent hoarding, to prevent price gouging, similar to what we had to do during the COVID-19 emergency. We've been through a great deal already, and I know that there are still many challenging days ahead. Thousands of people are still out of their homes. Thousands of farm animals and livestock are threatened or lost to floodwaters. But, as British Columbians, we'll all pull together. We roll up our sleeves, we show up for our neighbours, whether across the street, across the province, or even on the other side of the country. I want to recognize Bill Blair, Canada's Minister of Emergency Preparedness, who's been a tremendous partner in our response to this crisis. Federal resources and personnel, including members of the Canadian Armed Forces, are supporting our work. To the first responders, local governments, and First Nation leaders, and many volunteers, I want to say thank you. We had outreach today again from Alberta and Manitoba in terms of being able to help us in any way we can. This is a challenging time, and we're going to get through it. I'm going to come back better and stronger. And with that, I'll now pass it over to Minister Fleming for a further update.
Thank you, Minister Farnworth, and good afternoon. Today I'm pleased to report some good progress on reopening aspects of our highway system. This is only possible, I think we need to all acknowledge, because of the extraordinary efforts by crews, many of whom have been working through the night, over many nights now, around the clock, to ensure that we get our vital supply lines open as soon as possible. Last night, as an example of this, we opened Highway 7 east of Agassiz to allow people to leave Hope, as Minister Farnworth alluded to. Those were passenger vehicles that were piloted out first. They'd been there for several nights. The hospitality they received under these difficult times by the people of Hope is now legendary and appreciated by everybody in BC. This morning, after crews had worked through the night, after we got the passenger vehicles out, we were able to strengthen the roadbed further, test it, and then get out commercial vehicles. So truckers who've been away from their families for several nights are now back in the Lower Mainland with their loved ones, and that took place around noon to 2 this afternoon. Right now, Highway 7 is, at this hour, opened to one-lane single alternating traffic. This is good news to have Highway 7 as of last night open, because this is a key link, obviously, between for reestablishing a link between the Lower Mainland and the interior. The next piece in this link is connection to Highway 3. This will be, make no mistake about it, for very limited traffic, but it looks to be feasible by the end of this weekend. And as we begin to get these high priority routes open, we are drafting traffic plans to make sure that we prioritize essential goods and services to get through first, and we will update those traffic plans as other types of travel are feasible. The same goes for Highway 99. That's another route that is actually getting nearer to being accessible for limited travel. So I hope to have more details soon on Highway 99, but at this point, a form of limited travel on the 99 could be in place in the coming days. I want to be clear, though, that on the 99 as well, this will not be business as usual. This will be slower with occasional stoppages where we have to alternate. And again, if it's not essential travel, please do not do so. We'll have instructions about what conditions of driving will look like and who should be on those roads and who should not be as we advise on progress clearing those roads. We've made some good progress on Highway 1 on Vancouver Island here, the Malahat, so we had overnight full closures. We expected to have 6 nights of that. We will no longer need them. That road has been cleared. It will now be open 24/7 to single lane alternating traffic through the weekend, and that will allow us to get essential supplies and services moving better here between the South and the Mid and the North Island. We have, because of this improved condition on Highway 1 Malahat, been able to work with fuel suppliers to get a convoy of 15 fuel trucks into the Capital Region this morning to refill gas stations here in the Capital Region. In terms of concern about fuel supply around BC, it's different in different regions. We're evaluating the situation. We're working around the clock to open the routes that I just spoken about to get fuel and other goods moving quickly. We're taking a number of steps to maintain a supply of fuel, working with Trans Mountain, for example, to get their pipeline running quickly and safely. We're exploring options to have fuel transported from other jurisdictions like Alberta and the United States, and we're working very closely with the federal government, who is apprised of the situation and providing support to the province. As we continue to reopen our roadways, I want to thank provincial staff from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. I want to thank our road maintenance contractors who are all doing amazing work, clearing, repairing damaged infrastructure in different parts of the province. I mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. The outpouring of support we've received from British Columbians, people who have trucks, people who have sand, people who have skills, has been nothing short of inspirational. The people and the companies who built BC are chomping at the bit to help our ministry and communities that have been affected to rebuild BC. And I just want to say in closing that we're doing what we can, everything we can, to reestablish transportation links around the province, get goods moving and people moving. We're sparing no resources. We're appreciative of the federal support. We're appreciative of the local and regional district assistance and the unprecedented work together. And I want to thank a number of people, but my counterpart, Minister Al Gabra in Ottawa specifically, who has been a very good friend of BC, both before the crisis, but particularly during this crisis. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. This has been another very difficult day for agriculture in BC, but we have been able to find a couple bright lights, and I'm going to tell you about those now. We've definitely prioritized getting food and water to barns that are in critical condition, to farms that have been cut off from other transportation routes. And we have been able to identify priority farms by working with the BC Dairy Association and the BC Poultry Associations. And we were able to secure a delivery method by working with the Solicitor General, Transportation, Emergency Management BC, and Wildfire Service to secure helicopters to be able to drop containers to these farms and then charge them with water. So we that is underway right now. I believe we've already seen 1 or 2 farms that have been had water delivered, and we'll be working on the list that we've received from the associations to continue that. Once we get through the most emergencies, we will then shift into delivering food and water as needed, as the associations and the farming community let us know what the priorities are. This is the trying to access feed was a problem yesterday. Today we feel confident that we are going to be able to access feed. There was some feed that was at the port of Vancouver that was destined to go to China, and it looks like we'll be able to reroute that back into the valley as needed. We've also had our neighbors in Washington reach out with resources for us, and of course all provinces across Canada are stepping up, and it's really quite amazing to see. There are absolute concerns right now from farmers that need to get back into their barns to try and help their animals. This is a really painful moment for farmers. They are not able to access those barns because the transportation routes they're not safe. And so we just would like to remind everybody that road closures are there for a reason, and it's to protect safety. But I can tell you farmers would do anything to get to their animals, and we are seeing some of that, whether it's to get them food and water or whether it's to help put them out of their misery. They need to get there, and so we're working as fast as we can to ensure that those routes are there. But in the meantime, we need everybody to respect the closures that are in place. We're working with local government. I had a very early morning call with Mayor Froese. We spoke at 6 o'clock this morning, and other mayors as well. And this is just to keep the lines of communication open. Mayor Braun has just been such an exceptional leader. He's been so solid, and he's so connected to the agriculture community, and so we're really depending on him to continue to give us great information. So I just really want to say thank you. Again, we want to make sure that people are watching what they're buying and how fast they're buying things. We want to discourage any panic buying. Our food is secure. We're just rejigging routes to get it to folks, but we're definitely not going to run out of food. We've got the entire country that is willing to send us what we need, and we are working with retailers and distributors to make sure that food gets to where it needs to go. We are seeing just remarkable acts of courage right now. I just want to tell you that a young lady named Caitlin, her mom, her brother, and Caitlin run a dairy farm in Abbotsford, and their farm is on an island right now. It's dry. I met her through 4-H a couple years ago, and we were able to communicate today, and she's been sending me videos of herself and her mom and her brother going around with a trailer, picking up cattle and bringing it back to their farm in Abbotsford. And so I just want to say that these sort of acts are happening all over the place in the Fraser Valley, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who's helping out. Thank you.
For the next update, we go to Janelle State, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, South Coast Region.
Good afternoon. I'll start with an update in the Lower Mainland. On Highway 7, as Minister Fleming mentioned, between Mission and Agassiz, we actually have, we were just recently able to open a single lane in either direction. I do want to remind folks that there still is active equipment out there. Even though the lanes are open, these are very much lanes that are just coming out of a state of emergency. So there is still debris on the road. Drive safely, expect delays. On the section of Highway 7 between Agassiz and Hope, as the Minister mentioned, we do have that open to single lane alternating traffic for essential travel only. Again, we do have in the area of the Seabird Island, we have vehicles that were left there when folks were flown out of that site. We're working on coordinated removal. There's still debris adjacent to the road and active equipment working. So it's imperative that when folks are driving through there, they're expecting it's going to take a while, and they're being cautious and being mindful of the travel that's happening. Pilot cars are being used, and it's very important that folks are following the pilot car. The pilot car is aware of what the road looks like, the conditions, and the speed. So be certain to follow the guidance of that vehicle. On the Highway 1 corridor between Bcrcmp and Hope, We have been making some good progress on 5 different sites there. We have a significant amount of material, but our contractor has cleared a path close to end at this point for them to be able to start undertaking the full sort of assessment and get our engineers out there to determine when we are able to open that again to emergency travel only. So no time at this point, but I do expect in the not too distant future, we'll have a bit of an update on that piece. Highway 3 right now, our crews are working actively, and we have both a structural and geotechnical rapid assessment team on site, taking a look at the damage and assessing it ultimately before any road is reopened. We want to ensure that we're not compromising the safety of any travelers before we put folks on those roads. So as the minister mentioned, later this weekend, we do expect to have some form of access emergency and essential travel only. Highway 1 in the Fraser Canyon, specifically from Hope to Boston Bar, we have been able to clear a path for emergency travel only. This is an important pathway for us for CP to be able to start working on their line. So a big accomplishment, but again, emergency and essential travel there. Moving on in the Highway 1 Abbotsford area, the water continues to be on the highway. However, we are seeing positive signs of it starting to recede. We do have engineers on site right now with the City of Abbotsford looking at measures that could be done on and adjacent to the highway to again continue to protect the important infrastructure of the Barrowtown pump station. So no estimated time of reopening right now. It's just working closely with other agencies to make sure that we're preserving infrastructure that's critical to how water is happening in that in the Sumas Valley area. As we move over to Vancouver Island, Highway 1 on the Malahat is now open to single and alternating traffic 24/7. There will be intermittent delays on that corridor as we prioritize the movement of certain vehicles and commodities through that area, and also as we have to stage around construction equipment. Again, a very active construction zone with many pieces of equipment working, so it's important that people are adhering to the signs and the information being communicated by our traffic control people. And just in the last half an hour or so, we had a development of a sinkhole on Highway 19, about the size of a vehicle just north of Nanaimo at Superior Road. We now have the highway shut down in both directions, and we have traffic detouring on local roads as well as through the Sanawas First Nations. So do expect delays through that area, and I would ask that people respect travel signs, speeds through our First Nations lands and our local communities as we assess the damage there and develop a repair strategy. So no opening time at this point, but please ensure you follow DriveBC for the most up-to-date information on Highway 19. With that, I will pass it over to Paula for the other part of the province.
Over to Paula Cousins for the interior.
Thank you. For Highway 5, Coquihalla, Hope to Merit, initial damage assessments have been completed, and as Minister Fleming stated previously, we can confirm temporary repairs are going to take months. Our crews are preparing site plans to begin temporary repairs while engineering, procurement, and construction experts work to determine the best and fastest way to restore the corridor to its pre-event conditions. Along Highway 1, the Fraser Canyon, south of Spence's Bridge, ministry construction experts have been working closely with the railways to assess our sites and start reconstruction planning. This corridor has also experienced significant damage, and we will know more about the timing of restoring temporary access in the coming weeks. Minister Fleming noted on Highway 99, our crews are working closely with other agencies and making progress on clearing the highway. At the same time, a rapid assessment of all structures along the route is being conducted. And again, as Minister Fleming stated, we hope to be able to restore limited public access in the coming days. Highway 8 between Merritt and Spence's Bridge experienced probably the most extensive damage, and we will be conducting a LiDAR survey flight as soon as conditions allow to better understand the extent of the damage, which will inform our planning and reconstruction options. In addition to the work underway on our numbered highways, our crews are also working hard to restore access to several side roads which were impacted by the event. And we've been working with partners such as the Ministry of Forests, Lands and Natural Resources to restore access as quickly wherever possible and conduct further assessments where damage is more extensive. We continue to work with local governments and EMBC as information comes in on those sites.
And finally, we go to Dawn Roberts, Bcrcmp spokesperson.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. I can confirm that yesterday, aligned with the provincial state of emergency, our DOC, or Division Emergency Operations Center, raised its activation level, and the priority will be to support our detachments and police officers in the field and to ensure that they have what they need to keep our communities safe. As well, the DOC will continue to work closely with our provincial and federal partners, along with the Canadian Armed Forces, to ensure that we are aligned with their priorities. Some updates with regards to communities that we're actively assisting. The Upper Fraser Valley RCMP continue to provide support to the communities of Abbotsford, Chilliwack, and Hope, and we'll be providing additional police resources there as and where required. With respect to our efforts to deal with the Duffy Lake area slide, those continue. It still continues to be a challenging situation. The RCMP is working very closely with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, EMBC, the BC Coroner Service, and of course the Lillooet and Pemberton search and rescue teams. We want to ensure that the search for any missing persons or victims is done as safe as we can. At this time, the number of identified, extracted, and confirmed fatalities remains at 1. However, we do know that that number was likely to rise once we reach some specific areas. We can also confirm that we are now dealing with 4 missing person reports related to that specific area and the slide. The Merritt RCMP are working very closely with search and rescue to locate any people that have remained in that community and that may need assistance. And our Indigenous Policing Service in Merritt and Chilliwack are working directly with affected First Nations communities to ensure that they have what they need moving forward. We still continue to receive a number of calls regarding potential missing people. I'm not in a position right now to confirm the actual numbers because it actually does fluctuate as we conduct those investigations and determine whether or not they are missing or whether they've been able to get in touch with their loved ones. And so we are asking, though, that if you have not been able to locate or connect with a loved one or identify where they are, that you please do contact police, your local RCMP or the nearest RCMP detachment, so we can conduct those thorough investigations. And we're asking for those that have been evacuated to not, and I really need to stress this, not return to the communities until the local authorities have provided confirmation to do so and lifted any evacuation orders. Many of the areas impacted that our police officers remain in are not just dealing with water, but they're impacted by various issues from roads and other key areas of infrastructure. Currently, again, we have no reports of any criminality in evacuated communities. We remain in those communities. We are patrolling the affected areas as we can. And in Merritt, we're using boats and front-end loaders, and our members are traveling around to ensure that the community remains safe. And additional resources are being looked at and will be deployed as and where necessary in order to support local needs. For example, the BC Highway Patrol has been instrumental in shifting their duties, and they're providing additional operational assistance into the affected communities along with their core duties. And then, of course, we do stand ready because we know that eventually when the roads do reopen, there will be traffic volume. And so whether it's the BC Highway Patrol or other police, we will be ready and able to help ensure that we keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to 1 question and 1 follow-up. Our first question today goes to Bcrcmp, CBC.
Minister Farnworth, you hinted a few times at my wrong question. So what I want to ask you is the Canadian Forces soldiers that are arriving, I understand there'll be like about 120 tonight. Where will they be deployed and how will they help? What will be the tasks that they're assigned?
There will be a number of tasks that they'll be assigned, and it will range. It can be helping in evacuations. It can be involved in logistics. It can be operating equipment. It can be assisting, for example, with diking and such like. They will be deployed where it is determined by the people on the ground and to where they're most needed. The one thing that they do not do is they do not do security, for example. But those are the kinds of things that they will be doing. and we are incredibly grateful that they're here. And, it's just another indication of how this country pulls together. And as I said, the federal government has been with us right from the get-go.
Do you have a follow-up, Belle?
I do, please. So restricting non-essential travel in BC, what might those restrictions look like and when might they come into effect?
One of the things that we have been working on is obviously a traffic plan, and it's very much dependent on how roads are being cleared and being made available to reopen. And so what we want to do is obviously different from COVID, where it was restricting people from going from one health authority to another. The situation in this case is that as roads are repaired, in many cases it will be through limited access. So it may be single lane or alternating traffic. And obviously we want to ensure that the priority is for commercial vehicle, essential traffic. And so that restrictions would be put in place at those particular locations. And so that's what's being worked on in terms of an order that could be put in place under the state of emergency that we have announced. And I'm expecting that we will have details on that order and its implementation tomorrow.
Next question, Binder Sajjan, CTV.
In terms of how many people have been displaced in total. So people who are under evacuation orders, or perhaps even if there's a breakdown, who are otherwise displaced because they're not able to get home at this time. Do you have an updated number?
So it's about 17,000 people have been evacuated. Now that number obviously fluctuates and will change daily, and so that's the total that I gave you yesterday. We will be able to provide updated numbers as we get them. So, you had 1,000 people last night and today who were able to leave Hope. And get down. Many of them will be able to go home. Others will still be from other areas where they're having to have emergency support services. But that's the total, the rough total that we've had so far. And it's about 6,900 properties are under evacuation order. And again, that can change as the situation does improve. And I think about another 2,700 are under evacuation alert.
Do you have a follow-up, Binder?
I do. Thank you very much. And this is a question for Minister Fleming. From a colleague, do you have a system or protocol in place where even if they give you just a warning a couple of hours in advance, that Environment Canada notifies the Ministry of Transportation that rainfall is intensifying, and then that would allow you to proactively install warning signs or shut down sections of the roadway at high risk of slides and flooding? And if there isn't that sort of system, why isn't there?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure informs Drive BC through a number of agencies, Environment Canada amongst them, other meteorological sources. The predictive driving conditions are part of updates and advisories, so there were numerous advisories that were in effect through the weekend when the rainfall event happened, the atmospheric river. It was much higher than anticipated, of course. We had contractors and ministry staff on a number of different highway systems looking at the impact of the rain as it fell, in the first 12, 24, and 36 hours. And the reality is that there are hundreds and thousands of kilometers that were affected by this once-in-a-century event. Those observations do inform as well updates that we provide to the traveling public.
Next question goes to Richard Zussman, Global News.
Either for Minister Fleming or Minister Farnworth, trying to get an understanding of where we're at with the gas situation. Minister Fleming, I heard you say that some of the supplies have been reloaded in Victoria. Is there any timeline on when we may be in a situation here where we're running out of gas? Should people be panicked and waiting an hour-long line to get gas for their vehicles?
It's never good to be panicked when we have, some people live in regions where we have short supply chain issues. The example you gave, Richard, is southern Vancouver Island. Gas stations started running out. People observed other people queuing up and started buying gas. people who might use half a tank of gasoline in a week or 10 days decided to top up for no reason. They would otherwise not do it, except they observe that behavior. So no, this is very similar to grocery. It might be an idea to conserve for sure. But what I said in my remarks earlier is that we're aware of the supply chain risks around fuel. That's why we're working with Kinder Morgan, who has had to do inspections of their line after an event like this, which they have done in the past after wildfires. So we're working with them on and getting information from them as well about getting their pipeline running quickly and safely. We're also looking at fuel transported from jurisdictions like Alberta and the United States, and we're working closely with the federal government. I'm advised the Prime Minister is informed of this situation as well. Certainly the Premier and a number of ministries are working on all supply chain issues. Fuel is one of the key priority issues that we ensure we don't run out of fuel. But I guess the message for today is conserve fuel wisely and other materials because there are interruptions in the supply chain for a number of things that are essential, and that's an issue where we're working with our federal counterparts and our American friends on sourcing additional supply.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Our next question goes to Nick Johansson, Castanet.
Hi there. I guess this is for Minister Fleming. Just with regards to Highway 5, could you speak to how many individual sections of the highway have actually been impacted by discrete events? And moving into the winter months up there, will this work that's required be possible in some of these heavy snow conditions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the number 5 has about 5 areas of concern, some of which are very significant, be very difficult in a short period of time to, impossible actually, to restore it to the degree of functionality that we're used to on the Coke. So really the assessments that are going on right now with our geotech, with our engineers, with road builders and others who are involved is to come up with a plan about what a shorter term restoration of the Coquihalla might look like, and using, mindful of the weather conditions you've spoken of, what kinds of temporary fixes and alternate routes might be able to restore the Coke, and on what timeline. So we'll have updates. It's this week. It's unknown, but they are gathering information about what the stability is like and what some of the potential engineering ideas might look like to get it usable again.
Nick, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, sticking with Minister Fleming there. Over to Highway 99, Don Roberts spoke about 4 missing people still being searched for in the area. Will the highway be reopened to travel while those searches are still ongoing?
So others may be willing to comment on that. What I can say is that the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure is working with Search and Rescue and the RCMP on how we clear debris on roads without compromising any of the search and rescue activities that they need to do as agencies. So that collaborative approach, that situation and protocols are in place, and I don't know if any of our technical experts would like to provide additional comment.
Would either Paula Cousins or Janelle State like to offer a comment? Let's start with Paula Cousins.
Yes, we do with other agencies and very sensitively in a situation like this, which is extremely unfortunate. And we've been partnering all through of this difficult time. As we get the roadway cleared and activities continue, and as we will work together to determine the timing of reopening, and if recovery efforts are required beyond that, there will be privacy fencing and other things in place to ensure the sensitivity of the site is protected and preserved.
Our next question goes to Dan Fumano, Vancouver Sun.
Both the idea of volunteers helping out and the challenges around the fuel situation. So a specific question around that is, we've spoken to a number of fishing guides in the Fraser Valley who have been transporting people and animals and supplies, And it sounds like they're doing work that's really badly needed, but they say they're running out of fuel in the next day or so. And they say it would be a huge help if the government could set up a fueling station along the Fraser River somewhere, one or more fueling stations. Would something like that be possible? Is the government looking at something like that?
Certainly, and thank you for that question and for raising that. That's the kind of thing that when EMBC becomes aware of, we can plug them into the various emergency operation centers in terms of the activities that they're doing. We know that we have a lot of volunteers in different communities doing just that kind of work. So if those individuals reach out to us at Emergency Management BC, or you send the details, that's certainly something that we would be able to look at, and strikes me as another example of how British Columbians are just doing the right thing and showing up to help their fellow citizens.
Dan, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess just to that point, I mean, for Minister Farnworth, do you think that could be the kind of thing, or I guess will you agree to the opposition's request to create an all-party committee to look at emergency preparedness?
We have been undertaking a significant rewrite of the Emergency Program Act. The most important rewrite on that legislation since it was created back in 1993. In 2017, we were the first province in this country to sign up to the Sendai framework, which the federal government also signed to, which is the foundation for how to deal with emergencies based on four things of adaptation, mitigation, response, and recovery. We have been doing extensive consultation with local governments, with First Nations, with communities, the emergency sector, business on developing that plan, with climate change as very much a focus. And so there's been a lot of work already being done in regard to emergency management and changes that are needed. So that's very much underway, and the legislation is going to be introduced, and I look forward to the opposition supporting it.
Next question, Stefan Labbe, Tri-City News.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just spoke to one of 150 migrant workers stuck in a shelter in Chilliwack. One of them told me that they haven't heard from the province, from their consulates, or from their employers, that they've been essentially forgotten. Just wondering what the government's doing to help these people.
We are aware of the situation, and they will be able to access, and they are accessing emergency support services. In terms of the consulates, if they've not been able to access, then certainly we will be able to assist in that regard in terms of knowing where they're from and which are the appropriate consulates to assist them. But I can tell you, if they're evacuated to Chilliwack, they will be receiving support services such as meals and shelter and such like. And Minister Popham can add additional information to that.
Thank you. So we do have a very close working relationship with the Mexican consulate, and from the reports that we have, all workers that are helping us that are here from Mexico have been accounted for. They were moved quite briskly, so one of the challenges is that there are a handful of folks who had to move without their passports, so we're working with the federal government and the consulate to make sure that they've got those passports. But we're in contact with the Mexican consulate. And if there is a growing concern, we would be informed immediately.
Do you have a follow-up, Stefan?
Yeah, I'm told that this isn't the first time there's been fears that migrant workers would be sent home early because of a climate-induced event, that after the heat wave, several got sent home early. Is anything being done more long-term with these migrant workers to ensure that they're protected and from the fallout from climate change?
Well, thanks for that question. So we rely on, specifically Mexico, about 6,500 Mexican workers every year. We also receive workers from Jamaica and Ecuador. We have had some weather that has challenged some of the contracts that the workers come in under, but there is a legal requirement to fulfill their payment schedule. Our real main concern is to make sure that these workers stay safe and return home safe. So we were the only province that put in a 2-week quarantine program for these folks because of COVID-19, where they were required to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks to get past any issues with COVID, and their health was tested before they were released onto farms. And so we've been working probably more closely with the consulates than we ever have because of COVID-19. But the issue of having to go home early because of work is one that we discuss with the Mexican consulate, and as I said, there are requirements to pay them under contract.
Next question, Colton Davies, Radio NL.
It's been mentioned how the Coquihalla will take months to do temporary repairs. Just curious as well if the same initial assessments have been done yet on the Trans-Canada Highway through the Fraser Canyon between Boston Bar and Spence's Bridge. Obviously, there's at least a couple of washouts there. Just curious if you might have an idea of similar repair timelines for that highway.
We'll now go to Janelle State, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
So assessments on that corridor continue, but again, the degree of damage is fairly significant. It will be in that long-term time frame as well, a similar timeline to be able to restore access. But again, updates to come as we continue to assess the damage and develop that repair strategy.
Colton, do you have a follow-up?
Okay. So I assume there's the final work maybe isn't done there yet, or the final part of the initial work is what I take from that. But I also wanted to ask about in Merritt, now that the water's receded, the Coldwater River's actually carved a new path and is flowing over a residential road in the southwest corner of town. I'm just curious, has the province been made aware of this? I'm sure you have, but assuming that's the case, have there been any discussions on what could happen to address that if it can be addressed, and how the provincial government would be involved if so?
Thank you for that. And so when something like this happens, obviously there will be an assessment done. You will have geotechnical assessments. You will have some mapping done in terms of how this new channel, the size of it, its depth, the scope, can it be rerouted to its old channel or not? And so obviously that is going to take some time, and the province would most certainly be involved in that.
And we'll now go to Paula Cousins, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Oh, thank you. I agree with Minister Farnworth on the assessment piece. I just was going to say along Highway 1, a large section is in the Southern Interior region. So I was just going to say we have done assessments on the Highway 1 corridor, and we do have significant failures at the Nickaman Bridge, Tank Hill, and Jackass Mountain. So our construction crews are working with the railways right now on reconstruction planning, and we hope to have a better sense of timeline for when those temporary repairs can be in place in the coming weeks.
Next question, Alex McCain, The Star.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I just wanted to ask, we've heard from the federal government today that trucks that are going from Vancouver to the rest of the country are rerouting temporarily through the States. Just wondering, we've heard a lot about various repairs that are happening on highways throughout the province. I'm just wondering about those reroutes and whether those are going to be in place for the foreseeable future while those months-long repairs take place, or whether there's another plan underway to route those trucks through.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, there is the highest volume, I think, ever of BC goods leaving the Lower Mainland through highway systems in northern Washington, and then using border crossings like Soyuz and other parts of the interior where they can connect and get around the damaged areas that we've been discussing here this afternoon. But we hope to, as I said, repair as we have completed now the number 7 connection to Hope, the number 3, which will connect Hope to the interior. So that will be one of the areas that we hope to restore. You've heard an update on the 99 as well. We will advise on when that connection is made, and so we will have as a priority the movement of goods, commercial vehicles, after we get into the number 3, restore it, the number 99 as well, and the number 5 will take longer, as you've heard this afternoon.
Alex, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks for that answer. I have sort of a related question. We heard about temporary repairs that will be coming to the Coquihalla and to other routes. We've also heard from Minister Farnworth talking about the Sendai agreement, and part of that agreement, of course, is to build back after disasters, not just to the standard that infrastructure was built to before, but actually in a more resilient state so that they could withstand greater levels of disasters in the future. I'm wondering if you can tell us more, or if you can commit at this point to following some kind of framework, such as the PIVC framework, around building infrastructure that will be more resilient in the future after these temporary repairs take place.
Yeah, so the condition that you've seen in the images from the air of the Coquihalla tells the story. The condition on the ground is what we're gathering right now. So engineers, geotechnical experts are assessing it, and also, evaluating what kind of ideas we could use to perhaps restore the Coquihalla on a temporary basis, which would mean there would be a two-phased approach. One is building back the infrastructure better according to the principles, the Sendai principles that Minister Farnworth has spoken to. But we want to restore that connection if we can as soon as possible. But it's too early to update you fully on that. We will advise the public as we get more information. We'll take the assistance we have been offered from the federal government too. They have some expertise on infrastructure that is damaged like this, and be sharing that information. It's possible we could have a more fulsome update on that in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you for supporting us with our sponsors. Please go to depictions.media for more information, and click on our contact link and let us know how we can help bring your story and help bring us to a better world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.